In the relentless pursuit of perfection at Tesla's Fremont factory, a quality inspector's dedication was mistaken for defiance. What Elon Musk discovered about her would transform not just his company, but the entire auto industry's approach to safety. The afternoon sun slants through the windows of Tesla's Fremont factory, casting long shadows across Elon Musk's face as he studies the production numbers on his tablet. The figures should make him happy. Model Y production is up 30% this quarter. But one persistent issue keeps drawing his attention. Quality Control Station B17 is flagging cars at twice the rate of any other station. The bottleneck is threatening Tesla's ambitious delivery targets, and the pressure from shareholders is mounting. Behind the numbers is a name: Angela Chen, Quality Control Inspector hired 3 years ago. Her file photo shows a woman in her 40s, expression serious, eyes focused. Her recent performance metrics paint a troubling picture: increasing rejection rates, longer inspection times, detailed reports filed after hours. "These numbers can't be right," Elon mutters, running his hand through his hair. He pulls up Angela's inspection logs. Pages of meticulous notes about battery connection patterns, thermal variations, microscopic inconsistencies that no other inspector has flagged. The factory floor buzzes with activity as Elon walks to station B17. Angela stands at her post, bent over a Model Y's open hood, measuring tool in hand. 3 more vehicles wait in her queue, delivery deadlines ticking away. "Miss Chen," Elon says, his voice carrying over the machinery's hum, "we need to talk." Angela straightens slowly, her face composed. She seems unsurprised by his presence, as if she's been expecting this conversation. On her workbench, a stack of handwritten notes sits beside sophisticated testing equipment she's apparently brought from home. "Your rejection rate is significantly higher than our standard protocols require," Elon continues, gesturing to the waiting vehicles. "We're missing delivery targets." "I understand, Mr. Musk," Angela replies quietly, "but these batteries are tested extensively before installation," he interrupts. "We have AI systems monitoring every component." Angela's hand tightens almost imperceptibly on her measuring tool. "Sometimes machines miss what human eyes catch." The words hang between them, a challenge Elon hasn't expected from a quality inspector. He glances at his watch. The quarterly shareholders' meeting starts in an hour. "Clear out your station," he says finally. "HR will contact you about the severance package." As security escorts Angela out, she doesn't protest. She only pauses to hand a thick folder to her supervisor. "You'll want to read this," she says. "Page 47 is important." What Elon doesn't know is that in exactly 6 hours, that folder will send Tesla's entire quality control system into chaos and force him to question everything he believes about automation, human intuition, and the true cost of perfection. The quarterly shareholders meeting goes exactly as planned. Elon presents impressive production numbers, promising even faster delivery times now that they've streamlined quality control processes. The stock ticks up 2 points before the closing bell. But as darkness falls over the Fremont factory, something isn't sitting right. Angela's folder sits unopened on her supervisor's desk, its presence somehow accusing in the dim light. Tom Martinez, the night shift supervisor, picks it up on his rounds. He's worked at Tesla for 15 years, since before Elon took over. Something about Angela's quiet dedication has always reminded him of the early days, when they were still figuring things out. He opens the folder, more out of curiosity than duty. The first page is a hand-drawn diagram of battery cell connections. The second shows thermal imaging patterns. By page 10, he's calling Elon. "Sir, you need to see this." Elon arrives to find Tom surrounded by Angela's notes, spread across the conference room table like a detective's case file. "Look at these patterns," Tom says, pointing to a series of photographs. She noticed something in the new battery configuration, something our systems missed. The images show microscopic stress patterns in the battery casings. Tiny, almost invisible variations that only show up under specific temperature conditions. conditions that wouldn't appear in standard testing, but would develop after months of use. She was testing every car because she found a correlation, Tom explains. The stress patterns only appear in units from production line C, and look at this. He pulls up a map of customer service reports. Every major battery complaint in the last 6 months came from cars built on that line. Elon's mind races. They've already shipped thousands of cars from that production line. If Angela's right... His phone buzzes. A news alert. Major automaker announces battery recall affecting 100,000 vehicles. Stock plummets. Not Tesla. Not yet, but the similarities in battery design are impossible to ignore. Find her, Elon orders, already dialing his chief engineer, and get me everything she wrote about those stress patterns. But Angela Chen proves difficult to locate. Her employee file lists an apartment in Oakland, but she moved out months ago. Her emergency contact is a nursing home in Sacramento. The pieces don't add up. As the engineering team pores over Angela's notes, more details emerge. She had been staying late using specialized equipment borrowed from a materials testing lab. The logs show her clock-in times, 5 a.m., hours before her shift, using her own electricity meter to test battery thermal patterns. She knew, Elon mutters, staring at the test results confirming Angela's findings. She knew, and she was trying to catch every defective unit herself. A young engineer speaks up from the back of the room. "Sir, there's something else. These notes, she didn't just find the problem. She designed a fix, a simple modification to the assembly process that would prevent the stress patterns from forming." The solution is elegant in its simplicity. A small change in the assembly sequence, something their AI systems would never have considered because it went against conventional engineering wisdom. Elon stands at the window, watching the pre-dawn shift change. Workers stream into the factory, each passing the now empty station B17. The morning news shows their competitors' stock price falling as more details of their recall emerge. A recall that Tesla had been less than 6 months away from facing themselves. His phone rings. It's the nursing home in Sacramento. "Mr. Musk, we found Angela Chen. She's here with her mother, has been every night for the past year." The picture starts becoming clearer. Angela's increasing inspection times, her late-night testing, her determination to catch every defective unit. It wasn't about defiance. It was about protection. Protection of the company, its customers, and something more personal. Her mother was injured in a car accident last year, the nurse explains. Battery fire, different manufacturer, but, well, Miss Chen was pretty determined it wouldn't happen to anyone else. Sacramento Elder Care Center stands quiet in the early morning light. Elon parks his Model S in the visitor's lot, Angela's folder heavy in his hands. Through the window, he can see her sitting beside an elderly woman in a wheelchair, showing her something on a tablet. The scene stops him in his tracks. Angela Chen, the inspector he fired yesterday for being too thorough, looks different here. Her serious expression has softened as she points at the screen, explaining something to her mother with gentle patience. "She's here every morning before her shift," a nurse says, noticing Elon in the doorway. "And every night after. Sometimes she brings her testing equipment, works on her reports while her mother sleeps." "Testing equipment?" Elon asks. "Oh, yes. She'd set up her little lab right here. Said if she couldn't be at her mom's doctor appointments during the day, she'd bring her work here at night." The nurse smiles. Mrs. Chen loves watching her daughter work. Says it reminds her of when she was an engineer back in China. The revelation hits Elon like a physical blow. Of course, that's why Angela's notes seemed so sophisticated. She wasn't just a quality inspector, she was the daughter of an engineer who nearly lost her mother to the very thing she was trying to prevent. If you're finding this story powerful, take a moment to hit that like button. The truth about Angela Chen's dedication is about to reveal something that would change Tesla forever. Inside the room, Mrs. Chen notices him first. Her eyes widen with recognition. His face is too familiar to miss. She tugs at her daughter's sleeve, whispering something in Mandarin. Angela turns, her composure returning like a shield. She stands, positioning herself slightly in front of her mother's wheelchair. Protection, always protection. "Mr. Musk," she says quietly, "I assume you found my report." "Page 47, he replies, holding up the folder. "The thermal stress analysis. You were right." The tension in Angela's shoulders eases slightly, but her expression remains guarded. "How many units were affected?" "Nearly 3,000 in production, none delivered yet, thanks to you." Elon steps further into the room. "But that's not why I'm here." Mrs. Chen says something else in Mandarin, causing Angela to flush slightly. "My mother says you look tired," Angela translates reluctantly. She's an engineer too. She says people forget that machines are made by humans. For humans. Elon looks at the elderly woman, seeing the same keen intelligence that he'd missed in her daughter. "She's right. I forgot that yesterday." He pulls up a chair, setting Angela's folder on the small table between them. Next to it sits a framed photo of a younger Mrs. Chen in front of an automotive factory in Shanghai, pride shining in her eyes. "Tell me everything," Elon says, "from the beginning. No interruptions this time." Angela glances at her mother, who nods encouragingly. She takes a deep breath and starts to speak, her quiet voice carrying the weight of months of silent vigilance. The story that follows will reshape not just Tesla's quality control system, but the entire industry's understanding of human intuition in the age of automation. "I first noticed the pattern 6 months ago," Angela begins, pulling up files on her tablet. "It was subtle, microscopic stress lines in the battery casings, only visible under specific temperature conditions." Elon leans forward, studying the images. The early morning sun casts a gentle glow across the room as Mrs. Chen watches them both, her engineer's eyes still sharp despite her age. "Our AI systems weren't programmed to look for it because it didn't fit any known failure patterns," Angela continues. "But I'd seen something similar before." She glances at her mother. "In the accident." Mrs. Chen reaches for her daughter's hand, squeezing it gently. In fractured English, she adds, "Pattern recognition, not just data, story behind data." Elon's mind races as Angela pulls up more documentation. Every test, every late-night inspection, every delayed vehicle, it all traces back to her discovery. But there's something else, something he hasn't pieced together yet. "The solution," he says, flipping to the relevant page in her report. "This modification to the assembly sequence. How did you figure it out?" A ghost of a smile crosses Angela's face. She turns to her mother, speaking rapidly in Mandarin. Mrs. Chen's eyes light up, and she begins sketching on a napkin, her hand shaking but her strokes precise. "Mom worked on battery systems for 30 years, Angela explains. "When I showed her the stress patterns, she recognized something from her early work, a similar issue they'd solved in the 80s, but the documentation was lost when the factory closed." The napkin fills with equations and diagrams. Mrs. Chen's knowledge, preserved only in her memory, flowing out onto the paper. Decades of experience merging with her daughter's modern findings. "That's why I stayed late at Station B17, Angela says. "Mom's clearest hours are at night. We'd video chat while I tested her theories. Every rejected car meant one family that wouldn't get that phone call. The one we got 6 months ago." Elon sits back, the full weight of his mistake settling over him. While he was celebrating AI efficiency and record production numbers, this mother-daughter team was quietly preventing what could have been Tesla's darkest chapter. His phone buzzes. The engineering team has completed their initial analysis of Angela's solution. The results are undeniable. Her modification reduces battery stress by 87%, while actually streamlining the assembly process. It's elegant, efficient, and completely human. "Why didn't you come to me directly?" he asks, though he already suspects the answer. Angela's expression turns pained. "I tried. 3 times. But..." She gestures at her quality control uniform, then at the testing equipment she'd bought with her own savings. Who listens to an overnight inspector? Mrs. Chen says something sharp in Mandarin, causing her daughter to blush. Mom says I should have been more persistent. Engineers solve problems, even when the problem is getting people to listen. Elon can't help but smile. Your mother is wise. He turns to Mrs. Chen, speaking directly to her. Your daughter saved Tesla from a crisis we didn't even know was coming, and she did it while taking care of you, working double shifts and fighting through a system that should have listened sooner. Mrs. Chen beams with pride, patting her daughter's hand. Then she says something that makes Angela's eyes go wide. Mom, Angela protests, but Mrs. Chen continues, her voice growing animated as she points to her old engineering photos, then to her daughter's testing equipment. She says, Angela translates reluctantly, that sometimes the best innovations come from people who have everything to lose and nothing to prove, because they're not thinking about success, they're thinking about protection. Elon stands, decision made. She's right, again. He pulls out his phone, sending a rapid series of texts, which is why I'm here. He turns to Angela. I don't want to just reinstate you. I want to create a new division, human-centered quality innovation, and I want you to run it. Angela stares at him, speechless. Her mother clutches her hand tighter, tears shining in her eyes. Your mother can receive her care at our corporate medical center, he continues. Private room, full-time staff. She'll be 5 minutes from your new office, where, by the way, you'll have a full testing lab and a team of engineers at your disposal. He pauses, letting it sink in. No more overnight shifts. No more fighting to be heard. Just you, your brilliant mind, and a chance to protect even more families. The moment stretches between them, heavy with possibility. Then Mrs. Chen breaks the silence with a question that makes her daughter laugh through sudden tears. Mom wants to know, Angela translates, wiping her eyes, if she can consult on battery designs. She says she has a few more solutions to share. 2 weeks later, Tesla's Fremont factory hums with a different kind of energy. Station B-17 has been transformed into a state-of-the-art quality innovation center, its walls covered with a mix of modern displays and hand-drawn engineering diagrams. Angela stands at its center, no longer in a quality control uniform, but wearing a Tesla engineering jacket, explaining a battery design principle to a group of captivated engineers. Behind her, displayed prominently, is her mother's original napkin sketch, now framed. If this story of redemption and second chances has touched your heart so far, don't forget to hit that like button. Sometimes the greatest innovations come from our most humbling moments. Subscribe to hear more stories that remind us what's possible when leadership meets humanity. In the observation room, Elon watches the presentation with growing admiration. Angela's team has already identified 3 other potential improvements in Tesla's manufacturing process. Each one bears the distinctive mark of both modern analytics and Mrs. Chen's old-world engineering wisdom. The numbers are incredible, his chief engineer whispers, sliding over a tablet. Defect rates down 60%, assembly efficiency up 40%, and look at the employee engagement scores. The graphs tell a story beyond mere statistics. Quality control inspectors across the factory have started submitting improvement suggestions. Engineers are spending time on the production line, learning from the workers who handle their designs every day. But the real transformation is happening in a sunny room at the corporate medical center. Mrs. Chen sits surrounded by young engineers, her wheelchair positioned near a window overlooking the factory. They come during lunch breaks and after shifts, bringing designs for her to review, absorbing decades of wisdom that no textbook could provide. She's become our battery whisperer, Angela says softly, joining Elon in the observation room. Every day she remembers more, shares more. It's like watching her come back to life. The latest battery design specifications flash across the screens. It's a hybrid of artificial intelligence optimization and human intuition. Mrs. Chen's experience guiding the algorithms toward solutions they might have taken years to discover alone. "I was wrong," Elon admits, turning to face Angela. "Not just about firing you, about something bigger." Through the glass, they watch as Mrs. Chen sketches something on a tablet, her movements more confident now. The young engineers lean in, fascination clear on their faces. "I thought efficiency meant replacing human intuition with automation," Elon continues. "But your mother was right. Machines are made by humans, for humans. Sometimes the best innovation is just learning to listen to the right people." Angela smiles, remembering her own journey from overlooked inspector to division leader. "Mom says wisdom doesn't retire. It just waits for someone to ask the right questions." The afternoon sun streams through the windows, catching the frame holding both Mrs. Chen's original napkin sketch and the revolutionary battery design it inspired. Below it, a small plaque reads, "Sometimes the greatest solutions come from those who see with their hearts as well as their eyes." An alert pops up on Elon's phone. Their competitor's recall has expanded, costs mounting into the billions. Meanwhile, Tesla's stock has hit an all-time high, powered not just by sales figures but by news of their innovative approach to human-centered quality control. But neither Angela nor Elon is looking at the stock price. Instead, they watch as Mrs. Chen teaches another young engineer how to see the story behind the data, passing on a legacy that will protect families they'll never meet. 6 months later, Tesla's main auditorium buzzes with anticipation. Journalists from every major tech and automotive publication fill the seats, cameras ready. On stage, a simple banner reads, "The Human Element, a New Era in Manufacturing." This isn't just another Tesla product launch, it's something far more significant. Elon steps onto the stage, but for once, he's not the focal point. Instead, he gestures to his right, where Angela Chen guides her mother's wheelchair to center stage. Mrs. Chen clutches a small remote control, her hands steady with purpose. 6 months ago, Elon begins, "I made a mistake that almost cost Tesla dearly. But in correcting that mistake, we discovered something revolutionary." He turns to the Chen women. Or rather, they discovered it. The giant screen behind them lights up with 2 images. The devastating aftermath of Mrs. Chen's accident, and beside it, the stress pattern analysis that Angela first documented at Station B-17. Innovation doesn't just come from algorithms and automation, Elon continues. It comes from human experience, from wisdom earned through years of watching, learning, and caring enough to look deeper. Angela steps forward, her voice clear and confident, a far cry from the quiet inspector she once was. "Today, we're not just announcing a new battery design," she says. "We're announcing a new approach to manufacturing, one that combines artificial intelligence with human intuition." The screen displays the latest numbers: defect rates down 82%, production efficiency up 65%, and most importantly, a battery safety rating that sets a new industry standard. Mrs. Chen presses her remote. The screen fills with faces quality control workers, engineers, assembly line operators, each one paired with an innovation they've contributed over the past 6 months. But this isn't just about Tesla, Angela continues, which is why today we're doing something unprecedented. Elon steps forward again. "We're making our human-centered quality innovation program open source. Every discovery, every process, every lesson learned, available to any manufacturer willing to implement the same principles." The auditorium erupts in murmurs. It's unheard of in an industry built on proprietary technology. Because some things, Elon adds, looking at Mrs. Chen, are more important than market advantage. Mrs. Chen wheels herself to the microphone. In careful English, she speaks the words she's been practicing for weeks. Safety is not competitive. It is human right. The room bursts into applause. Journalists leap to their feet. But the most powerful reaction comes from the back of the auditorium, where dozens of Tesla workers, from assembly line to engineering, rise in standing ovation. These are the people whose voices now shape the company's future, each one wearing a small pin that reads, "Every detail matters, every voice counts." As camera flashes fill the room, Angela kneels beside her mother's wheelchair. They look at each other, seeing not just their shared past but a transformed future, one where wisdom bridges the gap between technology and humanity. In the front row, a young quality control inspector clutches a notebook full of ideas she's been too nervous to share. Until now. Because now she knows. Sometimes the biggest innovations start with the smallest observations, and the most important voices are often the ones we nearly miss. 1 year after the historic announcement, Tesla's Fremont factory looks remarkably different. The once stark walls now display hundreds of framed innovations, each credited to workers across every level of the company. But none draws more attention than the simple napkin sketch that started it all. Mrs. Chen's original diagram has become a symbol of transformation, not just for Tesla, but for the entire manufacturing industry. 5 major automakers have adopted the Human-Centered Quality Innovation Program, each reporting similar dramatic improvements in safety and efficiency. The Corporate Medical Center, where Mrs. Chen once received care, has evolved into an innovation hub they call the Wisdom Center. Here, experienced workers from every department mentor young engineers, bridging the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical wisdom. Angela Chen still starts each day at Station B17, though it's now the headquarters of Tesla's most dynamic division. Her mother, healthier and more energetic than ever, spends her mornings teaching a new generation of engineers to see the stories behind the data. But perhaps the most profound change can be seen in the small moments. A janitor confidently sharing an observation with a senior engineer, an assembly line worker's suggestion becoming a patented innovation, a quality inspector's concern being treated as valuable insight. Elon Musk keeps a special reminder in his office. Angela's original quality control badge framed alongside the company's new motto, "Every voice matters, every detail saves lives." The press still talks about Tesla's remarkable transformation, but they often miss the real story. It's not just about better batteries or safer cars. It's about what happens when a company learns to listen to the wisdom that walks through its doors every day, at every level. As for Station B17, it's become something of a legend in the industry. New employees learn its story during orientation, not just as a lesson in quality control, but as a reminder that sometimes the greatest innovations come from the heart as much as the mind. And in the end, that's what this story is really about. Not just the redemption of a mistake, but the discovery that in our rush to automate and optimize, we must never forget the irreplaceable power of human wisdom, earned through years of careful observation and unwavering dedication. Because sometimes the most valuable insights don't come from the highest offices, but from the quiet observers who care enough to look closer, work longer, and speak up, even when no one seems to be listening. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that their voice matters. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with a single person brave enough to speak up. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us what's possible when leadership meets humanity and wisdom finds its voice.